Hello, I'm Will for What Culture, and I, like seemingly everyone else in the world, love comic book movies. With titles like Infinity War and Deadpool 2 tearing up the box office, it's incredible to see beloved comic book characters translated to the big screen. However, sometimes things are lost in translation. With that in mind, I'm Will from WhatCulture.com, and this is 10 superhero movies that made major changes to iconic comic book moments.
Hey, just quickly to pop in before the list actually starts, I just want to talk to you about That Film Theory. If you don't know what that is yet, it's a brand new channel that's going to be about video essays, cinematic experiences, a bit more relaxed approach. Hopefully we'll see you there. You can find the details down below.
Number 10, Gwen Stacy's death, The Amazing Spider-Man 2. So the death of Gwen Stacy is probably one of the most important moments in Spider-Man's life after the death of Uncle Ben. In the comics, it's the Green Goblin who threw Gwen Stacy to her death, only for Spider-Man to catch her with his webbing. However, in catching her, the sudden stop caused by Spider-Man's webbing caused her neck to snap. This essentially made Peter Parker responsible for his own girlfriend's death. In The Amazing Spider-Man 2, all the key elements are still there, the Green Goblin, Gwen Stacy and Spider-Man. However, she actually falls and hits the floor just as he catches her, rather than having her neck snapped because Spider-Man caught her. This essentially alleviates Peter Parker for being the actual cause of Gwen Stacy's death, which sort of takes a bit of the significance out of it. Number 9, The Alien, Watchmen. At the end of the Watchmen comic book, Ozymandias' plan is to unite the US and the USSR by teleporting in a meticulously designed monster to the center of New York City. Basically, the intention is to unite the world's powers against one threat. In the film, it's a similar concept, but this time he puts the blame on Dr. Manhattan by detonating several bombs in several key cities, basically making Dr. Manhattan the key threat that the world has to unite against. Number 8, The Death of Superman, Batman v Superman. In the early 90s, DC decided to kill Superman, so they created Doomsday, a practically unstoppable killing machine who has a punch-up with Superman, resulting in both of their deaths. In the Warner Brothers adaptation, Batman v Superman, Lex Luthor is the one who designs and creates Doomsday by combining his own DNA with that of General Zod. Superman then teams up with Batman and Wonder Woman to defeat the monster, ultimately sacrificing himself to end the threat once and for all. Making Doomsday a Lex Luthor creation is actually pretty cool, and as far as comic book changes go, that one sits right with me. Unfortunately, the messy execution of the final act of Batman v Superman might not quite have been the execution that we wanted. Number 7, Thanos' motivation, Avengers Infinity War. So, in the comics, Thanos is basically trying to seduce Death. Death is not just an abstract concept in the books, but actually a real person. Well, the film version took a much more grounded approach, making Thanos into a bit more of a complex villain than a cartoon one. He still comes across as a little unhinged or perhaps even downright crazy, but it makes him a lot more understandable and relatable as a villain, and therefore far better for the film. Number 6, The End of Civil War, Captain America Civil War. So in the comics, Civil War goes on for 7 issues and only ends when Captain America surrenders himself to the authorities. He essentially gives up the fight, only to be assassinated not long after. The movie version was basically completely different, using the framework of Civil War to tell its own story. Most importantly, however, nobody died. Number 5, The Origin of the Batman, Batman Begins. In Batman Begins, a large portion of the film is dedicated to establishing Bruce Wayne's fear of bats. It leads to a cool moment where he decides to make the thing that he fears most the symbol with which he will use to inspire fear in the criminal underworld of Gotham. This ties in very nicely with the overall themes of fear represented in the movie by Scarecrow and the fear toxin. In the comics, the symbol of the bat is chosen a little differently, with Bruce Wayne adopting the mantle of the bat after a bat smashes through his window when he was deliberating on what to use as his disguise. He notes that criminals are inherently cowardly and superstitious, and so he needs something dark and frightening as his disguise. He uses the bat as inspiration for adopting the mantle of the Batman. Number 4, Demon in a Bottle, Iron Man 2. Demon in a Bottle is an iconic part of Iron Man in print, basically focusing in on the flaws of Tony Stark's character and his struggle with alcoholism. Iron Man 2 did an approximation of Demon in a Bottle, with Tony suffering physically from the effects of the arc reactor, getting drunk a lot, and generally seeing his life fall apart. The result was so different that many people don't consider it a direct adaptation, but that was exactly the point. That approach to the comic book source material basically defined how Marvel would draw influence and beats from the comics in future without actually taking the direct narrative points. Although Iron Man 2 isn't the best film in the franchise, it did establish that precedence which is carried on throughout many other Marvel movies. Number 3. Star-Lord's dad, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2. In the comics, Peter Quill's father falls in love with Meredith Quill but was then forced to leave Earth to wage war and wiped her memory to protect her without knowing she was pregnant. In the film, Peter's father is Ego the Living Planet, and rather than wiping her memory, he instead instilled a brain tumor in Meredith Quill, causing her to die. This was to stop his own desire to stay with her getting in the way of his plans. Yes, it's a hell of a lot darker, but it's also a hell of a lot more interesting. Number 2. The Time Traveler, X-Men Days of Future Past. So in the comic book version of Days of Future Past, it's not Wolverine but Kitty Pryde who jumps back into the past to stop the assassination of Senator Kelly. This is her attempt to stop the chain of events that led to the hunting down and extinction of all mutant kind. There are loads of differences in the movie version, but the principal one is of course that Wolverine is the one that's sent back by Kitty Pryde rather than Kitty Pryde going back herself. The reason for this is pretty obvious. It's Hugh Jackman. He's awesome, and he does a great job in what is arguably the best X-Men film, except for maybe X2. Number 1. Joker kills Batman's parents. Batman. Have you ever danced with the devil in the pale moonlight? It's the iconic line that Batman's parents' killer gives to Bruce just after gunning down Thomas and Martha Wayne in Tim Burton's 1989 Batman movie. In the comics, it's Joe Chill who kills Batman's parents, a petty and desperate mugger who sets Bruce on the path to becoming the Batman. However, over the course of Tim Burton's Batman film, it's revealed that the Joker, or Jack Napier, was the one who killed Batman's parents, giving himself away when he utters that iconic line once again. It's a major change to one of the most iconic comic book moments ever, but it did allow Jack Nicholson's villain to be just that little bit more personal to Bruce and the initiator of the legend of the Batman. And there you have it, folks, 10 superhero movies that made major changes to iconic comic book moments. Let us know what you think down in the comments below, and don't forget to like, share, subscribe, and visit whatculture.com for daily news and articles. I'm Will for What Culture, and thanks for watching.